right, moving on. Now, our next guest is a digital pioneer, a comedian with a cause, and a shining example of the rising breed of creatorpreneurs, those who transform entertainment into impactful enterprises. Now, her relatable persona bridges the gap between online engagement and offline action, sparking real-world conversations and inspiring positive change. She's mastered the art of turning engagement into revenue, proving that artistic integrity and commercial success can coexist. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Prajakta Koli, also known as Mostly Sane on social media. I'd like to also invite up on stage Pooja Jain, special correspondent at Times Network, to spear the conversation.
Hey everybody, good evening. Very happy to be here.
Very happy to be here, and thank you, Sumit, and thank you and congratulations to all our winners in the audience. Please give yourselves a huge round of applause. I believe it's deeply deserved. And Prajakta, it's such an honor to share this platform with you and spend some time to get to know you better. We've been following you for a very long time.
Thank you.
But many of us know Prajakta the persona and not necessarily Prajakta the person. So let's go back to the beginning. And I have to ask you, who or what even inspired you to launch your YouTube channel in the first place? And 7 million subscribers later, did you ever anticipate that this venture would take on an entrepreneurial turn?
Honestly, the online persona and the person in real life is not very different. Because very early on in my career as a YouTuber, I realized that it'll be a very tough climb if I try to be two people at the same time. But having said that, Sudeep Lahiri is here. He's here with me. There he is. He met me when I was working as a radio production intern in a radio station in Mumbai. And he suggested that I should start a YouTube channel. I honestly had absolutely no clue what that is. So I went into it very, very, very blind. And every single day that I worked as a YouTuber, next month I actually celebrate 9 years of being a creator, which is just mad, because when I started off, I'd not even thought that would be a thing.
That deserves a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean,
nearly a decade of this.
Yeah, so I'd not seen any of this happening. So if you really ask me if there was any thought that went behind it, was this like a strategic move or a very entrepreneurial journey for me? It really wasn't. I have kind of winged it so far.
Well, that's all the more interesting because your YouTube channel, Mostly Sane, has clocked well over upwards of 1 billion views. And finding one's authentic voice, as an entertainer and as an entrepreneur is very challenging to begin with. But to monetize that is yet another mountain to climb, right? So did you ever feel the urge to throw in the towel? Did you ever sort of think this isn't the right path for me?
I would have if I knew better. I was 21 when I started. I had no clue. I was overconfident till I was 21 because I was so sure I was going to be the best radio jockey this country has ever seen. Till I became one, and then I heard my show and I was like, nope, got to find another thing to do in life. Honestly, if I really was older, smarter, had more knowledge in general, not that I am that now, just older, but I would have probably thought of this as, maybe I need to approach it with a more calculated view. But really no, and I think that lack of knowledge, also a certain amount of ignorance towards what really works, what doesn't work, how life should be as a creator, or just the lack of kind of understanding where this was going. Because, 9 years ago, if you asked any of us, did we see digital platforms reaching where they are right now? We'd be like, no. If you ask me right now where I see digital economy growing in the next 2 years, I have no idea. Right. I know it's going upwards, but what direction it's going in, nobody knows. So, not really. I have had my days where I felt like, am I going to be able to keep doing this, or how long do I keep doing this? But I'm so grateful that my job is never the same. I mean, not one day is like another. So new doors that I had not expected started opening up, like something like a mismatched happening for me for Netflix.
Exactly.
Or something like like if a Dharma Productions is looking at me and wanting to audition me. I mean, those were doors that I would have loved, and I've always been a fan. I wanted to be an actor. But I didn't really wake up necessarily every morning as a creator thinking, chalo, I'll do this ताकि इससे मुझे acting के jobs मिल जाए.
Gee. So, look, my understanding is that you grew up in a middle-class household.
I did.
In Thane.
Yes.
You're not far from where I currently live in Mumbai.
Oh.
And as you explained this concept of a creator economy to friends and to family, did they ever look your way with confusion or perhaps doubt, disbelief, or even fear for that matter?
You know, I find myself extremely privileged and very, very lucky. There's no other explanation to this. But the two people that I went to for validation were my mama and my baba. When I went to them telling them that I want to do this, and I told them, you know, 1 साल मैंने radio station के लिए काम किया, and that didn't really work for me. तो 1 साल और मुझे काम करने दो अपने लिए. And I remember my father and we were eating dinner at the table, and both of them stopped mid-dinner, and they looked at me, they're like, why 1 year? Take 2 years. It's fine. There were no questions asked, and I understand what an incredibly privileged place that is to be in. So I actually never even waited to discuss this with my family or my friends, or I didn't really get bothered with people not understanding. Also, my friends were extremely supportive. They were there when I was shooting my first video. So as long as my parents were on board with it, I think I was good to go.
Well, look, 9 years is a significant amount of time, right? And if we were to speak to your fans or to your followers, Prajakta, how might they describe how your voice has evolved, how your brand of comedy has evolved? I know introspection is always incredibly difficult, but what do you believe they'd say?
They do say it. That is what I love about digital platforms, because it's all in the comment section. You really don't have to wait, and you don't have to wait for the TRPs to come, or you don't have to wait for the audience reactions to come. It's just there as soon as your content goes up.
Immediate feedback loop.
Immediate feedback, which is great. I depend on that hugely for everything that I do. The fact that my community has gotten bigger, and I'm very proud to say that. I always say this, but I have the best audience. They have supported me through everything. I say this on every stage that I go to. The fact that my community has become bigger, but also that much stronger. I still see comments from some viewers of mine who actually were one of the first few hundreds to subscribe to my channel, because I remember doing a meet and greet way back in time and meeting them, and we're still in touch. So the fact that they've stayed with me through all of this is a huge pat on my back. That kind of gives me the sheer guts to wake up and even try different things, or like move into these different avenues that I clearly don't know much about, but I'm trying and learning on the way. Secondly, I think having huge platforms like a YouTube show any kind of confidence in me. I mean, it's one thing for me to create content in my room and put it out on YouTube and just hope for people to watch it, but it's a whole different game for YouTube to tell me that, hey, we're going to send you to the World Economic Forum, we're going to send you to COP, we're going to send you to the UNGA, we're going to send you to the Billion Follower Summit, and how about you just talk? Tell us what you think. Use that platform. Make your voice heard. I feel like that is also quite validating for a creator like me to keep doing what I'm doing.
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that calls for a round of applause. You know, Prajakta, I have to ask you, you just mentioned the World Economic Forum.
I did.
And last year, if I'm not mistaken, you were one of 6 content creators globally that was invited to speak, you know, at the World Economic Forum in Davos. And many of my colleagues in this very room are headed to Switzerland themselves next week.
Oh, that's happening next week.
Yes, that's right.
So they did not invite me this year. I didn't do very well last time.
For their benefit, tell us more about your experience. What's in store for 2024? What do they have to look forward to?
At the WEF?
At the WEF.
You know what my favorite part about the World Economic Forum was? That it's such a free space. I mean, heads of states, journalists, content creators, attendees, people from ministries, people from NGOs, people from other non-profits from across the world are, like, you walk by them on the street when you're going to...
Just like...
Yeah, you meet people, and I feel like that accessibility is so rare, right? Yes, that is also a room where parts of the problem and parts of the solution are under the same roof. And I feel like that is so important because how else do we come to productive conversation? So I think that definitely, and pack lots and lots of thermals because it's freezing in Davos.
Well, Delhi is not too warm compared to Mumbai standards. I'm bearing with it myself. But look, I've also got to ask you, when it comes to your brand of comedy, it's often described as extremely relatable, right? There's something that resonates, that immediately brings everyone within their own life and zone to scenarios that they've lived through before. Is this all a conscious decision? Is this all by design?
Yeah, I don't think I'm a comedian. I don't think I can write jokes. And I am friends with some phenomenal comedians. I mean, Sumukhi and I are friends. And I see her work. I see her write. I see her perform. I will never be able to do that. I think comedy is way tougher than most of them let on. It's a very, very difficult profession to be in. And I have so much respect for everybody who does that. I, however, couldn't do it. I tried. I couldn't do it. So when you see any of my content, you won't necessarily look at it and say, oh my God, that's so funny. You will say, oh my God, that's so funny. It happens to me all the time. So the fact that every bit that I write comes from an experience I've been through makes it easier for me to write. So I think that is why the whole relatability bit really played in my favor.
Sure. Well, tonight is all about celebrating entrepreneurship. And you mentioned guts and grit and determination is what it really takes to succeed. And you also mentioned something very interesting a bit earlier, which is that while this is the leaders of tomorrow, nobody quite knows what tomorrow holds, right? That's the whole irony of it. So walk us through some of your early experiences in the content creation business that might take even some of the most seasoned entrepreneurs in this room by surprise.
Wow, that's not a loaded question at all. I honestly don't know, but two of my biggest learnings, they are actually intertwined. Number one is that content blocks are inevitable, and I feel like that's something that happens with everyone who's doing any kind of creation.
Absolutely.
Right? And I learned that the quicker I make peace with it, the easier it is for me to get over it. Number two was, and I was so funny because I was just talking about it, that no matter how good, because when we start off as entrepreneurs, or we start off as someone, we're all one person armies, right? And no matter how talented or how confident or how hardworking you are, I've just come to realize that you cannot do it alone. So for me, having my team has made the whole thing accelerate for me. I've been with the same team. I'm with One Digital Entertainment, so Gurpreet, Saurav, Sudeep, who've been my team since day one. 9 years of knowing them, they've become family now, and I don't think there is anything at this point I can do, and that doesn't come from a place of feeling handicapped or spoiled. It actually comes from a place of knowing that we're all good at different things, and we really work together when we are one unit. So I think these two things have been huge lessons for me.
Phenomenal. And Prajakta, I believe that the creator economy was traditionally dominated by celebrity influences. And we're seeing this significant but gradual shift towards empowerment and towards education, right? By way of knowledge sharing. And you seem to straddle both worlds quite effortlessly, right? So where does that stem from?
It's what I want to do. It comes from a place of wanting to do that. I think in 2016 is the first time I realized that there is so much more beyond the content I was doing, because I was speaking to my audience and they were speaking back, because the first socially relevant conversation I made on my channels was about body positivity. And I was very, very surprised with the kind of feedback I got for it when I first put it out. And that was kind of the first domino in this whole, I went from body positivity to mental health, to girl education, to xenophobia, inclusivity, gender equality, and now the latest that is climate action. So I feel like it all kind of just worked out very organically. And I learned on the way, and I realized that it is something that brings me a lot of joy. That I love the fact that I can draw a mustache on my face and crack lame jokes with my audience, but when we sit down and talk about sustainability and waste segregation, they're still listening. And that's a high for me. I like that the relationship that I have with my audience is more than just one dimension. And I feel like that's my biggest asset as a creator. So I like to hold on to that. because it brings me a lot of joy. So it really hasn't been, like there really haven't been exercises I do कि अच्छा अभी इतना किया है इसके बारे में तो दूसरे के बारे में इतना करो, so it's balanced. It's really not that much. And when you become a creator, put yourself out there, you just realize that sometimes it's really not that much thought. Your audience and you can kind of navigate through it easily because it's not like any of us know what we are doing.
Phenomenal. And you mentioned so many causes. And Prajakta, typically that desire to give back, right? It stems a bit later in life. But it seems to be something that you're so passionate about, so beyond early on, right? What do you credit that to?
A, my audience, and B, the fact that my job let me meet so many inspiring people across the world. I've met the most amazing people doing different work, speaking freely about things that are so passionate, that they're so passionate about, and that is very inspiring. I mean, that does rub off on you. Like, I remember when Michelle Obama walked into the room when we were shooting with her. I didn't know how I was going to ever be able to talk to someone who's called Michelle Obama.
Right.
But it was just the first hug. It was just the first hi. And then when the conversation started, it was flowing so easily. And that was so inspiring for me. I realized that conversations that are hard can also be made very easily. You can simplify things, and then that is an easier pill to swallow no matter how tough it is for you to talk about it. But so I've just had the pleasure of meeting the most amazing people, women across the world who have been very inspiring.
Fair enough. And for entrepreneurs out there that might be struggling to connect the dots between online engagement and offline action, what words of wisdom might you have for them?
Do brand collabs with creators. We can help you bridge that.
Wow.
Thank you.
You got a willing audience right
While
there.
we're at it, please subscribe to Mostly Say. Sorry, will you say that one more time?
Sure.
While you were saying that, I was planning to say this. I was just like,
because online engagement, right, is all fuzzy math.
Yeah.
But when you see the offline action, you can't dispute it, right? And connecting the dots between the two is not something everyone can do.
you know, honestly, as a creator, I'll only speak for one side of it. But I have had some lovely collaborations. I have done beautiful, and I've been doing it for 9 years now. 8 years. I started doing it 8 years ago. I've had great collaborations. It really just boils down to you knowing what your brand is. I feel like as long as you know what your ethics are, as long as you know what you stand for, as long as you know what your direction is with what you're doing, I think it really simplifies every collaboration that you do in connecting these dots.
Words to live by for our entrepreneurs in the audience. Determining your brand, right? And look, it's such an incredible time of volatility currently on just about every front imaginable. So what role are creatorpreneurs such as yourselves and your contemporaries playing in shaping that public narrative?
I really don't know. I feel like we'll have to wait a few years to really find out, because I also think that I'm so close to it, it becomes very tough for me to sometimes have a bird's eye view towards this whole juggle that I'm doing with my career right now. I love it. It's my favorite thing to do, but I don't know if I know enough about that right now.
All right. And any parting words you might have for our winners in this audience, the leaders of tomorrow that have come a long way and been through an incredibly rigorous evaluation process to reach this platform?
I feel like it's just very inspiring when individual responsibility is awarded. And I'll always be very grateful for platforms like ET Now to kind of look at it and recognize it, because there's so many people who start working, and let's be honest, like nobody's really waking up every day and having the best day. So I feel like days like this are very important, so cherish it.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Prajakta Koli, for a huge round of applause once more.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.